Welcome to this very exciting presentation of Neodynamics today. Together with me, I have Anna Eriksrud, the CEO of the company, and would like to welcome all the participants as well. Just some practical issues before we kick it off. If you want to post a question, please post the question in the chat down on your right side, and I will hand over the questions to Anna through the presentations. Today we are going to listen to Anna and an introduction to the company. I hand over the microphone, or I hand over the word to Anna. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you very much. I look forward to this session, as it's not always you have a chance to present the whole company, the background, product, etc. So the key essence here is very much that our imaging technique is so good today and is getting better and better in the cancer area. So you can see small lesions at the size of 5 millimeters. And it is then important when you take your tissue sample that you really can find it and take it out. And that is because you need an early treatment. Today's biopsy needles that take tissue samples, they have no precision. And they have a hard time to have control of the needle. And that's where Neodynamics comes in. And that's why we claim that there will be a paradigm shift in the hospitals where they take the decision to use Neonavia. So now I need to move this to next slide. There it goes.
No, it works.
So in brief then, if you want to understand Neodynamics, we could say it in this slide actually. We have a technology that is unique. We talk about the pulse technology. That is the technology that gives control to the needle. It's very exciting when you see the doctors, because finally they find an instrument where they feel that they have a total control of the needle and also flexibility to go their way and take out the correct sample. So it gives higher precision. It gives also the possibility to take larger samples thanks to this precision. And you can go into difficult places such as the armpit, where you have a lot of blood vessels and nerves. And finally, it is user-friendly. So we talk about the growing market of biopsies, and that is related to, of course, that the cancer is detected earlier, improved imaging technique. You remember I started off with that. The imaging technique is getting better and better. You find that the change very early on. And we talk about a fantastic treatment that is coming now. If you have the right sample, you will be able to take a decision on a treatment that is also called precision medicine. And there you can tailor exact treatment to the kind of change that you see in the lesion. So it is a growing biopsy market. And our business model is quite simple, but it's important to have a simple concept in order to get the message out. We want to prove commercial viability in selected markets. We're not going to spread thin, but we are focusing on a few markets where we have today a clinical program. And we want to see this technology to be developed in other areas as well. So we start with breast cancer, but there are several other areas which we can go to. So something about the background. Well, it's a Swedish company, as you know, and of course, not of course, but in many cases in the life science area, your background is in Karolinska Institute, where we had a very, so to say, smart and interested professor that was interested to see if he could increase the flexibility and the control of the biopsy area. And he started off with the pulse technology. This patent has been bought and taken over by Neodynamics, so it's ours 100%. And this Professor Wicksell, he took other patents instead that he was much more interested in. But for a company like ours, it's very important to have a base in something that is known worldwide. Another area that is important is, of course, the area of people. So I have a few slides here or photos here, but the most important to remember, in our management team today, we have founders that are still there, that worked with Karolinska at that time in 2010, 2012, and that is Kai-Ove Schesberger, as well as Magnus Olsen. They were there, and they were all through the company until 2016, when we had the product CE approved. We have all a background, also the people that you don't see photos of here, but we have people in the management team that are representing, that are country managers, and we have all launched products in the pharma, in the medtech area. We have also worked in it, so to say, and we have understood, so to say, how important it is to focus, but also understood the areas where actually it's not necessary to be, but see the critical steps that you need to take in our way to the market. The last now recent addition to the management team I want to highlight is Aaron Wong. He has a background in finance, 12 years in life science, in the financing area, have taken through companies through an M&A processes, several of them, and he has worked in both Canada, UK, and now in Sweden. So he's truly international, but will bring a lot of, so to say, good experience to a company like ours. And when we talk about our steps forward now, the next steps in the market where we need to find a partner, for example. I want also to mention our board. Maybe it's more important with a good and diversified board in smaller companies than in larger. I'll leave for you to decide. But we have here, I would say, strong people that can assist the management team and the operational team in taking the right decisions. So Ingrid Salén and Claes Pettersson are the ones that have, so to say, been along the longest time. Was here already in 2015-16. We have Carina Bolin, who is our lawyer. And then you see Professor Xu and Mrs. Bao, who represent our Chinese owners. And I think important to have in the board, as Asia will be our next step of expansion. And the closest in time where we talk about planning is, of course, US. And here we have Matt Kolpois, who have worked in both larger and smaller companies in the US, is based in the US, and have experience from the huge US market. A word about our owners. I would say that we have two very strong and good loyal owners in Mr. Fang and NKY, that is Y. And they have followed us since 2016, and they wait now impatiently to get also Neodynamics launched in China. We have then a stable, I should say, team of owners that is there since some time and are following us. But as you see, we have many smaller owners as well. So this part, the top 10, are representing 45% of the ownership. And current market cap is small. However, I would say that could also be expected when we are very close to all the critical milestones that we have now happening here in 2022 and by year end. So more about that here with our time schedule later.
And you only have one class of shares. That's true, yeah, and 100% free float. Of course, you have these big owners, but otherwise you have 100% free float, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Good.
That's a correct description. Okay. Are we ready for some parts here about the product then? Here is a summary of the product. You see the 3 different kinds of needles. You see also the driver, the intellect, I call it, where you have the pulse technology, and you use that driver together with the different needles. So what I want you to remember most is actually the pulse technology that no one has today, and which we combine with the 3 different needles. It is a one-hand pulse driver. That is important in this area because you have, in the other hand, you have the ultrasound probe. So a doctor to be most efficient is when he has one handheld, so to say, a needle system, and then he can be free to use the probe with the other hand to see where he is going. We have a multi-sampling function in the data pulse. That means that you can take several samples at the same time, and you can choose, and that is what we find the doctors are very excited about. They can choose, once they have the patient there, they have still the option to choose the right needle for the right patient. So Neonavia Core Pulse is the pulse, the needle with pulses that are used for the majority of biopsies. It is what we say is the part that is the easiest for the doctor. But the time they spend on the more difficult patients is also where Neonavia is so strong, because you have Neonavia Vapor Pulse, ideal for the larger and multiple lesions, as I mentioned, with a single incision. And then you have the FlexiPulse. That is the needle that has an open tip, and is the needle that we have developed here at Neodynamics. And with that needle, you can go into the armpit. You can take samples in an area where you have a lot of blood vessels and nerves. So the excitement among the doctors is very much about the pulse technology that is combining technology with a way of cutting the sample that they are used to see before. That is the Vapor Pulse needle and the Core Pulse needle. But where they haven't seen it before is in the FlexiPulse needle, where it has an open tip, and that means it's less invasive, if I may say so. We have then the base unit. The base unit is here. You see that in the picture where we have the power, I call it. That's where the vacuum comes. The vacuum exists in all the 3 different needles, and is, of course, important for the pulse technology to work. So our needles and our product, Neonavia, is designed to offer the highest precision lesion targeting. And it is, thanks to the pulse technology, it is possible then to get a higher yield each time you go in with the needle. And that means larger samples, which means that you don't need to stick the patient so many times, which is very good, of course. And you can reach difficult places with ease. And that is meaning a lot for the doctors, because this means you could avoid surgery in the cases where doctors today are actually sending the patient for surgical sampling or surgical tissue sample. And the reason is that why they send it for a surgical tissue sample is because the lesion is situated in a very difficult place, which they today then can use our FlexiPulse needle instead. So with this setup, Neodynamics has a setup where we can replace all ultrasound-guided biopsy devices. And I have here, yes, I have a coverage here of our patents. Of course, the IP value is very important for a company like ours. From early on, I would say, we have had a patent of our pulse technology, which has been very important, of course, granted in geographic areas such as China, US, and Germany, UK. we have the different needles that here is called distal tip, tissue, and trocar. They are also covered as a patent in Europe and US. And finally, we have this combination, as you remember, between needles and driver, which we are the only ones that offer this solution. All other producers and those that are selling biopsy needles, they are selling them one by one with different base units to it. So this is then the patent situation, and more will come, I would like to say, more as we come along with new innovations and new indications. So here is then a list of the areas where you today use needle biopsies. And I think it's also important to remember. So already today they use these spring-loaded needles in areas such as lung, prostate, liver, etc. And for our unique pulse technology, it will be very interesting to look more into other areas once we have, so to say, proven our concept in the breast cancer area.
So Anna, if we compare so the competitors, they offer a pulse product as well, but they don't offer the same variety, so three different needles. So you have to switch between the two offerings they have if you want to do the biopsy. Is that right understood? Where you have this one handle and three needles.
The competitors have not any pulse technology that you know, I think.
Okay.
Pulse technology is unique.
Okay, good.
And on top of that, we are offering 3 alternative size of needles. So with these 3 alternatives, you can actually cover all the ultrasound-guided needles that you would need in a hospital.
So you save a lot of time.
Because today they have one supplier of the vacuum, the VAB needles. They have another supplier of their core needles. And they have no FlexiPulse needle at all, because that we are unique with that needle. But with this setup, they have a complete setup. And for them, well, the purchasing department is very happy with that. And also
it looks very easy that you have this, you have the vacuum unit, and then you have the needles and the handle on top of that. So in that sense, it looks like you save a lot of time.
That's also good that you remind me of that. That is why we call it, they are easy. They say themselves, the doctors, that this is easy to use. It's just one button. And another one for the pulse technique, but it's one button on the base unit, and then they are off. So they don't need, for example, in the US with a lot of liability, often there are 2 radiologists together in the room. And of course, that is in a way a waste of time, etc. So when they see the possibility here to work with perhaps just one assistant, in Europe, the doctor says, I can do it myself. And they are very excited because these are senior doctors that normally have a cadre of people that are, so to say, helping them. But here they can manage it themselves.
I just have a very briefly a question from one in the audience. It's about your funding, but if you could just address, your product today is ready, and when you entered the stock exchange, you had plans for those money. Could you? I know I jump a little, but could you, just to answer the question, could you just elaborate?
We have been open and said that we have enough money now this year. We have been open with a new financing during next year, and that financing will focus not on product, but on the commercialization for the first team members in the US in order to prove concept. So that is the major, and then regulatory file for China.
Good. Yeah, just carry on.
Okay. Then we move to the market. Again, when I started, I said that this is a growing market, and it is growing because the tissue samples are very important in order to decide on what is the best treatment for the patient. It is still like that. And often if you want to adjust between treatment periods, like you do with cytostatics, you need a biopsy again between the treatment terms. The value of the market around 500 million US dollar, and it is growing, as I said. I think this picture may be a bit boring, but it shows very clearly what we talk about here for the patient. You know, the pathway for a woman that feels that she has a change in her breast, a noodle. She wants to go for mammography, or she's called for mammography. She could also have a liquid biopsy, a blood sample done, and that is quite new. However, all of these, so to say, test and imaging technique boils down to that you need to go to the doctor's office and you need to have an ultrasound inspection and a tissue sample taken. So the more the liquid biopsies are, so to say, coming, the more people will be screened, actually, and the larger the market for the tissue biopsy. We should also mention that the treatment has become so much better, but it boils down to that you need a good needle to take good samples, because today then the samples are so small. So what they use in the present situations are needles that are spring-loaded, they shoot, they can't really navigate in it. You need a lot of experience as a doctor. You know, the breasts are on top of your lungs, whatever you want it to be. And the lung is there, and the risk to punctuate the lung if you are not good in targeting and controlling the needle. So, and not the least, it is unpleasant for the patient. So in the good news that more and more patients are actually surviving and are even going out of the hospital with the stamp that they have now cleared out, they have no more cancer. It is still so that the earlier you can get the adequate diagnosis, the better the chance that you will survive. Another question I get sometimes is very much about the imaging technique. So many are talking about magnetic resonance, or MR, which is of course very interesting for areas where you can't really take any samples, but it is very expensive. And for the doctor in the breast cancer area, you want to avoid that. They use stereotactic, and that is it looks like a cyberspace of a lot of machines. It's also very expensive, but you use that when you can't really see the changes with the ultrasound. But the ultrasound machines today is the dominant. That's what they choose as the primary tool. And it's also something that is coming more and more. You have it in every room in the hospital. It's the preferred option, so to say. Should we take any questions now, or we move?
Let's take. There's one question about your pipeline. I think we should. That's one question. I think we wait a little with that, because I know you're going to touch upon that. But the other question from Jens about who is really early adapters. I know you addressed that as well. Is it the public or the private sector?
I think it's a good question. In our area, in the breast cancer area, in Europe, we have very little private initiative. And I must say that we have, I call them technology freaks. They love the technique, the improvements, because as one doctor in Manchester said to us, I worked in 25 years in this area, and there have been no news. And now finally we have something to look at. So early adopters exist also in the public health area. I would say that it will be somewhat different is the feeling today for the US market, because you have very strong chains of private initiative, private clinics in the area of cancer. So I want to keep that open and say that it will be very interesting to see. We look for early adopters, but they must also be with a very strong platform in the area of cancer. Otherwise, they are not helping us, you see. So it is the combination of strong people that are ambassadors for new technique, and we are with them.
But as of today, you already signed up a couple of clinics in Europe, yeah, both in Germany.
Yes, with orders, yes,
and with good feedback. You recently, Neodynamics recently sent out an announcement on this actually, and you can find that at the homepage. And the next area for rollout besides Europe, I know you touched upon that, Anna, as well, but that would be US, yeah? Yeah, good. Yeah, but just carry on, and then we answer in a short moment, we will answer the question about your biomarker project, because that's interesting as well. I know you told me that.
I saw that's nice to see. So I will touch on that as well. So, then a short list here. The priority number one as a Swedish company is, of course, Europe. We have specialized salespeople. We call them key account managers. They are experienced and they know what is important to do and what to avoid, I call it. And we have had first orders in. You should, though, remember when you evaluate sales numbers that we talk about a first initial phase with pilots, where they, of course, pay for the needles, but they have a chance to evaluate, and then they move into customers. Also to remember, we have a few people involved in each of our key markets in UK and Germany. But I say, coming from a larger company myself, with that experience, we do exactly as the larger companies do when they initiate a product. You need to be very strong in the beginning, not to jump on all the different clinics, rather to be focused and show results in the most, so to say, influential clinics. In the US, we are working with FDA, as you are expected to do as a life science company. You have meetings with them, you discuss, and you put together your file. I would say that the pandemic has influenced us a lot because FDA has less resources. They are less quick in responding. So it depends on FDA now when we submit the file. But it is important then to remember that a strong file will move through FDA much quicker than if you just submit something and they come back and they ask more questions, and then you really waste time, and it can be a long process. Finally, China. China is still looking at US, whatever we say in the political arena, but they want to see that the file is accepted by FDA in the US, and then the Chinese authority will also accept it. So we are initiated the work now with the regulatory process in China during by the beginning of next year.
Yes.
Then something about our work. I have mentioned it so many times now, but we talk about peer-to-peer strategy. And you know yourself, you trust your colleague if that colleague is emphasizing what you should do. Here we talk about key opinion leaders, we talk about ambassadors, you can call them influencers in the area, that are actually telling their colleagues what is good and what you want to avoid. And we have been very lucky. We have had a very good and strong team in Germany that we have started with already in 2014-15. We started to work with them. In the UK, we have an ongoing study now, and in Sweden, we are working with a few clinics here in Stockholm. So senior sales team members in the key countries, and we are then selecting the clinics, and our aim is to have proof of concept in these target markets. And why do we talk about proof of concept? Well, that is simply because we are looking for a partner that will have the strength and sales force to take this on a broad basis out. And a partner, a potential partner, what is the first question from them? It is, show me example of where the product is working. And there, our reference clinics will be very important. We differentiate also by the way we are handling our key opinion leaders and our clinics, that we have a clinical program. Not all medtech companies have invested in a clinical program. But for us, we are in the zone, we are very close in a way to a pharma company, but we don't have to have clinical studies in our regulatory file. We use the clinical trials as a way of marketing our product. And we do that because we know that the doctors appreciate very much. This is like one doctor said to me, this is to divide between real good friends and friends that you can do with or without, because they know that with the clinical trial, the company is committed long term. And they know we will stay and we will evaluate and we will talk with them over congresses. And of course, they stay ambassadors for us. So here you have a name of well-known clinics. And we have finalized a German study. You saw a press release on that from November on the Axilla trial from Germany. We have an ongoing comparative study in the UK. In the medtech area, we talk about an amount of patients that is quite impressive because in the medtech area, you talk about 20 patients done here, 25 there. Here in Germany, we had 140 as a total recruited patients. And in the UK, as a comparative study, we are coming up over 400 patients. Mm-hmm. And this is then, from a partner perspective, a very good thing. They understand that we have experience in the life science area and we are here to stay. And they are very, very excited. Some companies, in the oncology area has both diagnosis and treatment in their basket. So here we have a nice, some photos from the real life. So launch is picking up, as we say, with speed as restrictions ease. And first I want to say that the pandemic has, of course, influenced us a lot. The rollout has not been a speedy one because hospitals have closed. They have not accepted people to enter, except patients. So doctors have called us and almost cried and said, I need to cancel this workshop because we are not allowed to have it here in the hospital. You see also how we work on congresses with hands-on experience. And of course, this is from a pharma rep's perspective, they envy us because we get hours with the doctors. If a pharma representative is going into the doctor's office, she or he must be happy for 5 minutes or less. Here we talk about an introduction where you at least have booked doctors for an hour. You can go through the purchasing procedure, you can discuss both prices and reimbursement, and you can discuss the technique. So being a key account manager here in this area is to be a partner with the doctor, to teach or to introduce him to new systems. Questions about profitability, etc. I have chosen to step back a bit and then to refer to other experience I have with larger products that I've been part of launching. You need at least 2 years in the market before you see that you have a break even. And that is because a product in itself needs time with the doctors. It's not done like a retail product. The pandemic has slowed down, but I would say that with a partner, of course, the catch-up will be there in another way than if we would have set up a sales team, which we are not going to do. But if we do our work in a good way, we will have partners interested and convinced that we will have a quicker, so to say, catch up. Another thing in the race for profitability is, of course, the investments that we are doing now in also regulatory process in China. For a company like ours, it's important that we own all the regulatory approvals. That's not something we should leave for any partner. So we are investing in that in order to also secure that we get a strong partner, and we will have that through our owners from China. So that's also a next step, but of course an investment.
Yes.
Okay, now we are moving to, we had a question about the marker, the clip.
Yes, that's right, Anna. Please address that.
So those that ask for the clip, I think maybe understands also the dynamics of the market, because it is like this, that it's not enough only to go in and take a sample at the right place with control, with precision, but you need also to mark the place where the lesion is. And why is that? That is because the precision medicine is getting better and better. So when the doctor is so they checking the patients between the treatment periods, he hardly can find the place where the lesion was, if well treated. And he has to go back and take out the lining of the lesion. It is like a shrinked plastic bag that he needs to take out. Very small, but he needs to come back. And today, funny or not, but I must say it's remarkable that the doctors accept it, but they have a very hard time to find the clips that exist today. You can see them on mammography, X-ray. But when you come to the ultrasound machine and you are in the surgery room to take out everything, you have hard time in many cases to find the lesion. Today, it is part of the biopsy procedure that you always leave a clip in, and that is happening in the US, and the market is growing also in Europe. And we have been approached by a radiologist that has worked at HC Andersen in the US, and he has addressed with us the need for a visible marker. And that's what we work on now. A marker that, here you see as the flag that a marker can create when you use the ultrasound. So this is an ultrasound picture, and here is a marker, and you can see the flag here that it creates. And of course, then you can find the place where you want to go. We are completing the design phase this year, and of course, this is interesting from a commercial perspective, because if you could bundle together with the needles, that is very interesting from the hospital's point of view.
Interesting, Anna.
Yeah, and I've actually come to the summing up.
Yeah, good. Let's hear.
And that is a slide I've used before, but it's good in the way that I hope a checkpoint for you that have listened in, that we are a part of the improvements that are done today in the cancer care area. You have more and more precision medicine. You have more and more requests to find smaller and smaller lesions, and that's where the pulse technology is coming. Our product is well documented and will be even more when we have finalized our clinical program. It has a high degree of innovation, and that's why we have a strong IP. And our introduction, as you know, is not done overnight. It is to take the product out in the right clinics to prove concept of working and viability. And we are doing that with our specialist sales force that is very experienced. So this is what we work on now, and more will come during next year.
Thanks a lot, Anna. Great presentation. I just want to be sure there's no more questions out there. If there's any questions, please post them now. There's no further questions, Anna.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your presentation.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot to the audience for posting so many great and interesting questions. I hope you enjoyed the afternoon, and thanks a lot for today.
Thank you.